journalists aren't asking the right questions on why the Metropolitan Police is such a failing institution. We're going to read into this piece from Byline Times, you guys. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with an article from Byline Times with the headline of "Journalists aren't asking the right questions on why the Metropolitan Police is such a failing institution." The latest episode of the Hit Media Storm podcast focus on how the press frames our damaging and indiscriminately policing culture. Guys, while you're here, make sure you hit the like button and share it across social media so others are notified of this video. So in the past, I have talked on this channel about how our police service has institutionally failed us on numerous occasions. There have been numerous cases, not just in the last 14 years, but before that, even under Labour, where the Metropolitan Police has not done enough for the protection and the safety and the well-being of other people. And there is a culture within the police force, a dangerous culture, a misogynistic and even racist culture within the Metropolitan Police that seems to be coming out. We know that some police officers have mistreated people simply by the colour of their skin. We've also heard cases of police officers treating women indifferently because they're women. And where is this going to end? When is it going to end is the question. And I'll tell you, the only thing that's going to change is nothing. Nothing is going to change with our police. Because I am sick and tired of hearing about the police saying, "We've changed," or "We're going to reform," or a politician's going to say, "We're going to reform the police service." I'm sick of hearing that comment because it doesn't work. It hasn't worked and it never will work. It's just, let's just say we're going to make changes. Oh, look, we've made all these changes. And then suddenly you hear another case. And once again, we're going round, ring around the rosy. And once again, the trust that people have in police is once again failed. There are even places in the country where people will not contact the police because they don't trust them. There have been cases of people reporting sexual harassment or rape crimes, and the police have not taken them seriously because they think they're making them up as well. What kind of police service or police officers don't take any kind of case seriously? They should take every single crime that is reported seriously. For me, the only solution for me is to dissolve the Metropolitan Police completely and replace it with a brand new police force built from scratch. And it should be built off the foundations of one, maybe two ex-police officers, and from built within the work frames of the communities, mayors and government cooperation, and also taking ideas and inspiration from other countries about how they would, and new training permissions. And what you do is you build a new police force from scratch. From scratch is what you do. And you slowly, and as you build up a new police force, you dissolve the old one, i.e. the Metropolitan Police. And you don't allow everyone from that police force to come over to the new one. Oh, unless they go through the exact same vigorous training that this new police force goes through. They go through the exact same training. They don't get a buy-through. They have to go through the same thing. Because clearly, there doesn't seem to be any plan. And an independent body must be set up whenever people have complaints about the police. Completely independent from the police force as well. Because the one they have just doesn't work. It doesn't work. So many complaints have gone unnoticed. And it's just swept under the carpet. And it is time. Labour say it's time for change. You're right, it is time for change. It's time to get rid of this police force and start a new one from scratch. That's what I believe needs to be done. So a Metropolitan Police officer was this week found guilty of assaulting after grabbing, arresting and handcuffing a black woman over an apparent bus fare evasion in South London. Do you know, just based off this first piece, bus fare evasion? There's youths that do this all the time. And you're targeting a black woman over this. Just putting it out there. It comes as new figures show the number of Met police officers are being dismissed from the force has reached a new peak with more than 100 officers dismissed last year. With a general election round the corner and competing parties will be drawing up manifestos and battle lines, and no doubt policing will be high on the line, a cornerstone of the Conservative Party's agenda is a commitment to bolstering law enforcement agencies. While Labour has already said it will provide more neighbourhood police officers for more patrols on the streets. But we do need to hear pledges from Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer about how pouring more money into the police force will reform a 200-year institution such as the Met, or should we instead listen to those most affected by policing, women and girls, communities of colour and other minorities who, without a lectern and a campaign trail, just don't seem to get a look into this subject? What do you think? Answers in a comment down below. I grew up being taught to trust the police, equal rights activist and writer Patsy Stevenson had told the latest Media Storm podcast. It feels really weird now to know how naive I was. Now I wouldn't call the police on anyone if I'm honest. That's terrible. Stevenson's shift came after she was forcibly arrested at the band Canal Viral on Clapham Commons for Sarah Everard in March 2021. During COVID restrictions, people, mainly women, had gathered angry at being told they couldn't mourn the death of a woman who was kidnapped, raped and murdered by a serving Met police officer. Stevenson expected to put down a candle and pay her respects. Instead, she was pushed to the ground and arrested, captured in a photograph that came to be the front page news for weeks after. I was terrified, recalled Stevenson. I'm very grateful to have had that experience, although it was traumatizing because my eyes were opened. I realized how police brutality has been happening for decades. It's undeniable that the murder of Sarah Everard was a turning point in women's mistrust in the police, but it was not the starting point. Seeing police brutality was literally part of my upbringing, Dr. Layla Hudson, international activist, psychotherapist, and co-founder of Safe Space for Black Women, told the podcast. Let's go back to Stephen Lawrence. We've been questioning how the police behaves for more than 3 decades now. It's not something new, but what we are forgetting to address over and over again is this conditioning that we must trust the system, that this system was built to protect the elite. It wasn't to protect women. The status quo that we must trust the police to protect the public is a line rarely challenged in the mainstream media. And this is 100% true. We tend to think, the police, yeah, they're not perfect, they make mistakes, but they still do a great job. That's the mindset that they want you to have about the police force, guys. That's the mindset they want you to have. But how can we trust a police force when they continuously make mistakes after mistakes after mistakes? Yes, mistakes do happen. But when you have so many on this level, how can people have trust? How can women have trust knowing that if they phone the police when they need somebody to be there for them, how can they trust that police officers to be there for them? They just simply can't. The trust is broken. That is the reality. Take the recent case of PC Perry Loafwood, found guilty of assault after he wrongfully arrested and manhandled Jolene Amarick in Croydon in front of her young son, leaving her with bruising. Amarick was later de-arrested when it was proven that she had paid her bus fare. But it was her bus fare that made the headlines, rather than the arrest in itself. The framing of Ahmed being somehow vindicated because she actually paid the fare, as if the arrest would have been acceptable if she'd not, was revealing but unsurprising. A black woman that needs to prove that they're good people, said Dr. Hudson. That's literally how this was framed, because black people need to prove that they're paid for their bus in order to actually get some sympathy and empathy. Online, the victim blaming tweets rolled in. Why didn't she hand over her Oyster card? Why didn't she try to walk away from the police officer? The real questions are forgotten. Why was a police officer violent over an apparent £1.75? Would this have happened if Ahmed wasn't black? Exactly. If this wasn't a black person, I can guarantee you this would not have been the same situation. Even the vinyl, everyone was shocked. Because I'm a white girl, Stevenson told the podcast. She splits the blame between the authorities and the media. There are interviews where I've sat there for 30 minutes talking about, for example, how Sarah Everard was viewed as opposite as opposed to Beba Henry and Nicole Smallsman. That they cut all the clips, that they showed me crying, that all they showed me was crying for a bit. That's the way the media works. She shared the story of a female police officer speaking to the press and misusing her friend's words. A cry for female solidarity. Imagine if it was you who had been raped and murdered and turned into you deserve to be raped and murdered. Just let that last bit sink in. While she was exposed and widely demonized in the media, Stevenson felt that the Met Police never took full accountability for its actions on the night of the vigil, despite it paying for substantial damages and apologising last year after she launched a legal claim against the force under the Human Rights Act. We had to fight for 2 years, and in the end we didn't win. We had to settle because we were so exhausted. How can there be trust if there's no accountability? And this is what I've said. There's no accountability for the police. After PC Lavwood arrest, the Met tweeted that it would come to support the officer and continue to support our workforce. Is there a solution to an institution that always appeared to protect its own? Exactly. I think we need to stop pretending that it's working, Dr. Hassan said. She believes rational changes starts with addressing the mental health of officers and calling for psychological assessments before and during their time in the force. I can't imagine being a police officer where I'm seeing violent murders all the time and not being impacted by it. Patsy Stevenson's approach is considered more rational in the mainstream. Just defund them. She talks of putting money into community care such as neighbourhood watches and preventive youth work for children, teaching them about equality and anti-racism in the hope that they never grow up to become violent in the first place. As for steps that we take today, join a bystander training, support local organisations and learn how to step in. When someone's arrested, don't always believe they must have done something wrong, she added. I feel for them and I feel for anyone who is subjugated to this. And I just want to remind that is from the Media Storm podcast. So if you go to whatever your latest podcast and type in Media Storm podcast, you'll find out more on that, guys, from them. I don't know if it's available on the Byline. Might be part of the Byline team as well. But definitely probably worth checking out for yourselves, guys. I've said before about how much I think I did a video a while back where they only actually went into looking into 1% of complaints from police officers at one point. I don't know what that number is now, but I'm going to assume it's probably still around that same number. They look after their own, and I get this premise that police need to look after their own. I get that premise, but there's a time and a place for looking after them. When something as bad as these incidences that we have read into that are not being dealt with and handled, there is a problem here. They are too busy covering each other rather than dealing and looking after the victims who have been perpetrated here. And the complaints go nowhere. They don't go anywhere with the police officers. This is not good enough in any way, shape or form. And both Conservatives and Labour need to do far more to address this issue. It's not good enough to say that they're going to make reforms. It's not enough anymore for me. It's not. And I've said in the past that there are one or two good police officers. And believe me, there are one or two. They're not all bad. I know the majority are quite a lot are bad. But there are one or two good police officers. And I know because I've met them and I've worked with them before. In relationships to previous jobs. But it's a real sad state of affairs that police officers are portrayed that every police officer is portrayed as this, when there are one or two who are actually trying to do their job and they can't. It's a fail. The police system has failed in this country. It has failed. And you have to change it. And my heart goes out to her and to any women who are going through this right now. Anywhere. Because it's not right. And we know it's not right. So guys, what do you make of this story? What do you make of the piece written by Byline Times? What do you make about the Metropolitan Police and its institution? Let me know your thoughts and more in the comment section down below. If you found this video informative, please hit the like button. We greatly appreciate it. Share it across social media so others are notified of this video. And subscribe because it really does help support the channel. And if you want to go one step further, financially support me and the work that I do here, you could do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p, or join me on Rumble, Patreon, or Facebook for exclusive content on those platforms. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.